Hey there, welcome to the second part of my Childhood Trilogy video series, where I waste a few months of my time talking about the things I was a fan of when I was young and stupid. Last time I talked about Transformers and its influence on my style. Now, I'm going to talk about what inspired my sense of creativity in the first place. And seeing that you most likely saw the topic from the thumbnail and title, you already know what this is about. Before we go on with the video, I'd like to tell you that LEGO is normally spelt with all caps, and it is pronounced the same way plurally as it is singularly. That may sound a bit confusing, so let me just say that it's spelt like this, and that a bunch of pieces is a bunch of LEGO, not a bunch of Legos. Sorry if you were raised to pronounce it differently, but this is a cold hard fact on how to pronounce it. Think of it like moose, it's a herd of moose, or it's just one moose, it's something like that, basically. Okay, moving on now. So LEGO, what is it? Well, you should know what it is. Anyone who had a childhood has probably at least heard of these little plastic choking hazards, let alone play with them. It's the building bricks that took the world by storm way back when, giving anyone, mostly children, a good avenue to start their creative journey, good time killer seeing as how some of these sets often take way too long to build, and ways to flex technical experience. I'll talk about this later. So most of you know what it is, but probably not how it came to be. Honestly, I'm not all that certain myself. I'm too lazy to search it up, and instead felt like making an animated video. Hint hint. And working on another storytelling venture. Hint hint. So what I remember is, someone in Denmark way back when made wooden toys and sold them. The usual variety of toys. Boats, robots, maybe? I can't remember. This was until one day he got inspired to make little building bricks out of plastic, called them something that translates to build and or play well, depending on how it's translated, and release it to the world. That's my really condensed version of the story, but there's plenty of videos out there on YouTube that talks about the early days of LEGO history. I'm not here to go completely in depth on where it came from, I just want to give you an idea to help entice you to do more of your own research, because God knows I ain't gonna do that. Anyways, LEGO would go on to produce billions of bricks for a variety of themes, such as space, Middle Ages, Old West, and more, until later on, they started to make license sets for pre-established properties, with one of the first, and most popular, being Star Wars. They'd also partner with a bunch of external media producers, and pumped out stuff like movies, books, comics, video games, and the most infamous commercials I have ever laid eyes upon, the style of which mostly carried on to this day. You know how it goes. Something is going on in insert location here. LEGO guy shouts, "Hey!" Some kid builds a set at the speed of goddamn sound, and a day is saved. Obviously not all commercials are like that, but they're still just so effective at representing what you can do with these little things. Okay, this part that I'm going to talk about may just be a rumor, but, they weren't really doing so hot near the turn of the millennium. So in 2001, they decided to take a risk with a new IP, one that would be so different from their norm, and eventually paid out big time. That's right, I'm talking about Bionicle, baby! A lore-filled, story-driven series that replaces the usual brick system for something more akin to action figures. It was a smash hit, and would go on to get wave upon wave of sets for years to come, but also the same external stuff I mentioned previously. And even then it strays from the norm that way. Instead of the usual style of commercials we've known, it's often fully CG, showcasing the different characters doing cool stuff and battling enemies and scenarios based off the established story of the series. Almost every piece of media ties into the story in some way. Even the packaging of the original toys tied into it by being their means of traveling through their world. And speaking of this large and expansive story, with honestly way too much lore, let me get into it a bit with a super basic plot summary. It first started with 6 warriors called Toa, washing up on an island called Madanui. These Toa represent the 6 elements, being fire, water, jungle, ice, earth, and stone. A few of these I feel like don't make sense as elements, but moving on. Tahu, what I based my sketch on, Gali, Liwa, Kopaka, Anua, and Pahatu then go on a quest to defeat the evil Makuta and awaken their god of light and creator, Madanui, the namesake of the island who is put asleep by the previously mentioned Makuta. So yeah, that's a lot of weird terms for such a basic story. But no, don't you worry. It gets a hell of a lot more damn complicated as the series goes on. There's these little island inhabitants called Matoran, there's New Toa, there's Old Toa, who turn into these old sages called Turaga, there's giant robots, weird creatures, magic masks, an ocean filled with its own society and creatures who transform from warlords. Yes, that exists. An entirely new planet with its own story and culture. Hell, there's even a whole ass language, just sort of as fleshed out as it gets. And I'm not even scratching the surface, not even close. I can go all day, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to leave it here. This series will go on for 10 years, ended on an admittedly rushed conclusion and send-off in 2010, and was replaced 1 year in 2011 with Hero Factory, a futuristic take on the building style, but set in a universe completely different compared to Bionicle. It's more dumbed down in terms of lore and storytelling, but it still does have some interesting facets and tidbits of backstory to it. The plot is mostly just a bunch of cops/soldiers, or heroes, taking on a bunch of roided up looking villains and locking them up in prison, not even giving them a chance to appear in court. Oh, how I would love to see how that goes. Later on, they would get more into killing bug-like creatures and stuff, like goddamn exterminators or something. This goes on for about 4 years with 6 waves, with the second one completely replacing the established building system to something that reminds me of the armoring up scene from Iron Man, if you know what I'm talking about. That series ended without even a conclusion in 2014 or so, and got replaced with, get this, a reboot of Bionicle 1 year later in 2015, or 2016, I can't remember. This reboot basically took a similar premise with the first year of the original story, and just left it at that, while adding some new elements and changing up pre-established ones in order to be more accessible to a general audience. If it was a math equation, I would chalk it up as the premise of Bionicle G1 plus the dumbed down juice and building system from Hero Factory equaling Bionicle G2. This series ended in 2017 with no fanfare, though at least it ended with a conclusion, but that one also felt very rushed like G1. It barely got any marketing, its old audience got too old and moved on from Bionicle by then, and it got nothing but an online video series made in Flash and a CG Netflix series, both of which being not so good. At all. And that was the unfortunate end of any Bionicle related series, and most of the stuff under that building system as a whole. LEGO also had a few other story focused series that were also made using the traditional brick building system, such as Nexo Knights, The Legend of Teemo, and Ninjago, with only that last one still going on today, and even then I'm not too certain about that. LEGO just moved on from it and even made what seems like a jab at it when it was mentioned in a LEGO movie. God damn it. Now that I spent more than 2.5 pages of my script talking about the basic history of LEGO, Bionicle, and its related series, I'm going to start going on about some of my history with all of this, such as starting out with LEGO in 2009 and in Bionicle's second to last year, while the story was already in space with its Sklatorian line. I also went on to watch all of the movies and read some of the books. I then got a couple sets from Stars, without knowing Bionicle ended, and started Hero Factory in 2011. I went to Legoland, Florida. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that they made a cooler version of Disneyland. And yes, I did go to both in the same trip. I got Hero Factory sets and read all the books, and got surprised when I saw the new Bionicle sets. I saw the Flash series, and was underwhelmed when I saw the Netflix series, especially its ending. And that's it really. I got some other LEGO stuff like Ninjago, Chima, and LEGO City. I played a crap ton of video games, especially the multiple versions of LEGO Batman I had. All of the Marvel games, LEGO Batman 2, LEGO Batman 3, which was the only game I had for my 3DS, Jurassic World, the LEGO Movie game, and LEGO Dimensions. Oh, don't worry, I'll talk about you next time. Just you fucking wait. I also watched the LEGO Movie and its spin-offs, and didn't watch the sequel because I lost most interest with LEGO at that point. Nowadays I sort of moved out of that realm, but still, despite that, my friends still constantly associate me with that phase of my life, unfortunately, and bring back memories that I often wish were left forgotten. Thanks, assholes. Though yes, I did stop getting the toys like I did with Transformers. I even stopped looking at what the community made in terms of fan content, for Bionicle at least, seeing as I still have a feigning interest, you know? Stuff like reviving Bionicle, the Ignition movies, yes, movies, look at the length, the Bioformers videos, the cool looking Quest for Matanui fan game, and a bunch of miscellaneous crap I forgot the titles of. Seriously, you should go check some of this out when you have the time. It's pretty interesting what these people come up with. Well, I mean, that's LEGO in a nutshell, but still. So now, the only thing I have left to talk about it is its impact on the life ahead of me. If you watch some of my old videos on this channel, and the majority of the content of my old channels, you'll know that I made stuff centered around the LEGO figures that I owned. But as you know, there's something that's quite different about them compared to other figures. Yeah, I made what the LEGO community called MOCs, or my own creations. They're basically a bunch of original characters or variations of official mainline characters that were made by mixing and matching parts from multiple sets, sometimes even creating your own if you know how to. Originally, they were what you expect, colorful, misshapen messes, but over time, they became a lot more mature and coherent, even starring in that series. I'm not going to say that title again, it's way too long. Eventually I stopped building MOCs entirely, and resorted to drawing them out on paper and in Photoshop. All those designs can be found on my Instagram and website, a link to the latter can be found in the video description below. Yes, if it wasn't for me getting into LEGO in the first place, I probably wouldn't have found my love for designing characters and crafting stories. Or at least I wouldn't have as soon as I did. So I guess if I had one thing to thank these little plastic stepping hazards for, this would probably be it. Honestly, I wouldn't be too ashamed to say that I was a fan of this stuff, especially in my early years. It was a huge influence for any creativity that I had, and allowed me to test the water for things like character design and storytelling. The only thing that really sucked was the cancellation of Bionicle, and basically the entirety of that specific building type thing. Oh well, let's just hope that they do something for its 20th anniversary in July. Wait, it's almost 20 years old? Holy shit! Hey there, I hope that you've enjoyed what you saw in this video, and that you'll stick around for the next and final video in this trilogy when it comes out in April. Or if it's already out, make sure to watch it as well as the first part, where I talk about the history of / my history with Transformers. Also, make sure to subscribe to my channel by clicking on the red button right next to my profile, and check out my website by clicking the link down in the description below. And while you're at it, check out my Instagram profile and Discord server. Just do it. Anyway, I'll see you next time.